In World War II, Nazi Germany produced some of the most grotesque and terrifying machines the world has ever witnessed. Once the war had been fought, a lot of these monstrous and experimental vehicles were left behind, abandoned to rot in woods, buried in bunkers, or hidden away in the farthest corners of Europe. Some were the gigantic tanks that were never finished, others were strange prototypes that did not make sense. Hidden for decades, they've been unearthed by incredible discoveries and meticulous restorations. From amphibious motorbikes to rotor kites and asymmetrical aircraft, each vehicle has a story of ambition, desperation, and defeat. Come with us as we explore 20 of the most bizarre Nazi vehicles ever discovered, ghost machines that reverberate from an ugly, disorderly page in history. Number 20, Landkreuzer P.1000 Rat. One of the most radical ideas of World War II military technology was the Landkreuzer P.1000 Rat. Commissioned personally by Hitler, the Rat was intended to be the biggest tank of all time, 115 feet long, weighing over 1,000 tons, and needing over 20 crew. It was supposed to have naval-grade cannons, anti-aircraft protection, and armor that was almost impenetrable. But it never got past blueprints and unfinished components. The size of the tank rendered it unworkable, it couldn't fit on most bridges and roads and burned gas at unsustainable levels. It was a giant, lumbering target, particularly from the air. Post-war design schematics and prototype components were discovered in an airlocked Berlin bunker, demonstrating the extent to which Nazi technicians followed Hitler's megalomaniacal designs. Now, fragments and models of the Rat are seen at the Military Technical Museum in Koblenz, spooky reminders that sometimes the most frightening monsters are the ones not built. Number 19, Fieseler Phi 103R Reichenberg. The Reichenberg was a manned version of the V-1 flying bomb that was developed in 1944 as a last-ditch German weapon. It was a cockpit version of the V-1, with a pilot able to fly it into enemy targets. Even though not officially considered a suicide craft, pilots would have to bail out from the aircraft mere seconds before crash in an almost impossible mission given its speed and altitude. Hanne Reich, German test pilot, flew several prototypes and documented significant control problems. Pioneered under the Leonidas Squadron, a command associated with suicidal missions, there's no record the Reichenberg saw action. Post-war, incomplete examples were discovered in Dannenberg and Nordhausen factories. Now, one is on display in London's RAF Museum. Number 18, Kugelpanzer. One of the oddest-looking Nazi vehicles of all time, the Kugelpanzer, or ball tank, was taken by the Soviets in Manchuria. It looked like a metal sphere with two giant wheels and a small rear stabilizer, with no armament and just a vision slit. It was probably intended for close-range reconnaissance or communication. Its sole known unit had been sent to Japan and possibly put into service by the Guangdong Army. No documents clarify its purpose, and no other versions have been found. Now preserved at the Kubinka Tank Museum in Moscow, it remains unrestored and mysterious, a puzzle left unsolved by history. Number 17, Messerschmitt Me 323 Gigant. The Me 323 Gigant was WWII's largest land-based transport aircraft. Based on a glider model, it featured 6 engines and could carry 10 to 12 tons of cargo or 120 soldiers. Although massive, it was sluggish, weakly armed, and an easy target. Most were destroyed by Allied action, particularly on sorties to Tunisia. In 2012, parts of a Me 323 were found off Sardinia, subsequently confirmed by serial numbers. Although no full planes survive, parts are museum preserved, a testament to Nazi overdependence on size without sufficient defense. Number 16, Panzerkampfwagen 8 Maus. Designed by Ferdinand Porsche and approved by Hitler, the Maus was the heaviest fully enclosed tank ever built at 188 metric tons. Armed with a 128 mm main gun and a 75 mm secondary, it was nearly impenetrable. But it was slow, bridge-crushingly heavy, and vulnerable to air attacks. Only 2 prototypes were made. The Soviets later combined parts into one complete unit, now on display at the Kubinka Tank Museum in Russia. Number 15, Schienenwolf. The Schienenwolf, or Rail Wolf, was a railcar equipped with a massive plow to tear up train tracks as Nazi troops receded, particularly on the Eastern Front. It was not armed but designed only for sabotage. One of the preserved units was found in an underground Polish tunnel, largely complete with the claw remaining attached. Today, it resides in a railway museum and provides a glimpse behind Nazi logistics destruction efforts. Number 14. BMW R75 Sidecar. The BMW R75 was a motorcycle with a powered sidecar wheel for improved traction over rough ground. It was used for scouting, communications, and even combat. Some were equipped for it, and more than 16,000 were manufactured. Number 13. Ju-87 Stuka Dive Bomber. The Stuka Dive Bomber, whose distinctive sirens and gull-like wings became synonymous with Nazi bombing raids, was effective at the start of the war but easy pickings later on. In 2015, a well-preserved Stuka was discovered by divers in a fjord in Norway. Number 12. SD, KFZ-2 Kettenkrad. Half-tank, half-motorcycle, the Kettenkrad towed equipment and drove over uneven terrain. Designed for airborne troops initially, it was a small tracked vehicle driven by an Opel engine. More than 8,000 were produced. One turned up in a destroyed farmhouse in northern France, still sporting original parts. Number 11. V-2 Rocket Transport Train. To secretly launch the V-2 missile, Nazi Germany employed special train transports. One of these trains was found in a sealed Belgian tunnel during the 1990s, long the subject of local legend. It had flatbed cars for the rocket components and carried markings that connected it to identified V-2 units. The rockets themselves were not present, having been removed prior to sealing the tunnel. The location is partially preserved today, and some remnants of the train were recovered for analysis. Number 10. Goliath Tracked Mine. The Goliath was a wire-guided demolition mini-tank that could hold 100 kilograms of explosive. Although it was produced in the thousands, it was slow, brittle, and easily dismantled. One intact specimen was unearthed near Cannes, France, decades later. Bomb squads disarmed it, and now it resides in a local museum, a first-generation precursor to contemporary unmanned combat vehicles. Number 9. Focke-Wulf Triebflugel. Arguably the most bizarre Nazi airplane, the Triebflugel was a VTOL fighter interceptor with jet engine-driven rotating wings. It was meant to take off and land vertically, something that was before its time. Although no prototype was constructed, a mock-up survived post-war. Subsequent research indicated that it would have been almost impossible to control. Nevertheless, full-scale models do survive, demonstrating the aerospace advancement of Nazi Germany. Number 8. Tatra T-87. This smooth Czechoslovak vehicle, with its streamlined body and rear-mounted V8 engine, was highly sought after by Nazi officers. Ironically, it was accused of causing several deadly crashes because of its high speed. It was abandoned in masses in Eastern Europe after the war. Although not a military vehicle, its styling and dark history make it historically significant. Some of them have been restored and are now collectors' treasures. Number 7. Dornier Do 335 File. The Do 335 was among WWII's fastest piston engine planes, with front and rear propellers in a push-pull configuration. Capable of 470 miles per hour and equipped with advanced tech like an ejection seat, fewer than 40 were made. One was brought to the U.S. and restored by the Smithsonian. Another incomplete frame was later found in Bavaria, confirming its limited production. Number 6. Volkswagen Schwimmwagen. This amphibious variant of the VW Kübelwagen was sealed, paddle-wheeled, and had a folding propeller. More than 15,000 were produced and utilized for reconnaissance, particularly on the Eastern Front. Large numbers were abandoned in rivers or lakes but remained serviceable because they carried waterproof equipment. A few have since been recovered and even restored to be functional on land and water. Number 5. Fokker Aegis FA-330 Backstells. Towed behind U-boats, this rotor kite provided a better lookout point for detecting enemy vessels. It was not a helicopter but harnessed the motion of the sub to make the rotor spin. Approximately 200 were produced, but none were used because it posed the risk of surfacing. One surviving unit, discovered in the 1970s, can now be found in the Smithsonian. Number 4, Blohm and Voss BV-141. This recon aircraft's asymmetrical design, with the cockpit offset to one side, looked bizarre but worked. Around 20 were built before engine shortages halted production. None survive today, though detailed photos and technical notes remain. Number 3, Borgward 4. Bigger than the Goliath, the Borgward 4 was a radio-controlled demolition tank that could release its payload and fall back. About 600 were produced, but most were destroyed in action. One of them, rusted out, was found in a Polish barn, refurbished, and is now on display in a military museum. Number 2, NSU Kettenkrad. This rugged, compact hybrid motorcycle tract was designed for paratroopers and off-road use. Thousands were manufactured, many abandoned after the war. One was discovered buried under debris in France, refurbished, and now exhibited at shows. Number 1, Tracked Motorcycle. The NSU Kettenkrad, combining motorcycle maneuverability with tank mobility, provided a perfect solution to mobility challenges. Despite being overshadowed by its bigger counterparts, its rediscovery is evidence of how extremist Nazi Germany experimented with unconventional transport solutions.